There are a lot of things that can end a climber's career. A serious injury, going to prison for heinous crimes, or even death.
Oh, God, it's impossible.
But none of those things are nearly as disastrous to a climber's career and reputation as a downgrade. Except maybe dying. That'll do it. For those of you that don't know, downgrading is when somebody climbs something and suggests that it's actually easier than the official grade. Now, this may sound innocent enough, but some climbers have had their entire careers ended because of one simple downgrade. I swear climbers will literally go to prison, and it will get less media coverage than a fucking downgrade. So today we're going to take a look at the insane reactions to downgrades, the careers they've affected, and the biggest downgrade of all time, V16 to V8. Yeah. First, I want to talk about the most insane reaction to a downgrade that has ever happened. In 1996, professional rock climber Bernabe Fernandez sent Araujo, which he graded 9A or 514D. And at the time, this was the highest grade that existed, meaning that somebody sending a new 9A was a pretty big deal. And Bernabe was a rising star at the time, so while this was huge news, it wasn't unbelievable for him to send this grade. But this climb would still become extremely controversial. Because allegedly, Bernabe glued fake holds onto the route because he believed that the original route was almost inhuman. Everything in this video is going to be alleged, by the way. It's all allegedly, okay? Because I'm tired of people threatening to sue me. Anyway, people were very upset with Bernabe for gluing fake holds on the route, and this led to professional rock climber Danny Andrade to go try the route for himself. And not only did Danny believe that the route was not hard enough to be 9A, but he also found a more efficient way of climbing the route that made it even easier. That's gotta hurt. Not only is your climb easy, but you didn't even climb it right. Now, what do you think a reasonable reaction to this would be? Maybe talk shit about Danny online, right? Maybe take a shit on his rope next time he's at the crag. Maybe, just be happy that you climbed something really hard that you're proud of and accept the downgrade. Fuck no. Bernabe went back to Araujo and chipped the route again to make it impossible to climb the way that Danny had climbed it. And I don't even have to say allegedly here because Bernabe proudly said so himself. I decided to return to the route to make some modifications so that the route would be forced to be carried out just as I had done it, maintaining the difficulty of 9A without the possibility of another interpretation. Dude would rather destroy his own creation than share it with anybody else. He's like the Dr. Frankenstein of rock climbing, just haphazardly drilling and gluing holds on shit until he realizes he's created some unholy abomination of a climb. Bernabe also went back to the route again in 1998 and chipped it again, allegedly, this time saying now it was a 9A plus or a 515A. This meant that Araujo was now the hardest climb in the world, and no one gave a shit. I mean, you would think that if Bernabe was out here climbing 9A plus for the first time ever, he'd be a celebrity, right? He'd be signing autographs, walking on the red carpet, speaking at the UN, but no one cared. And as far as I'm aware of, no one has touched this route since then. It's just kind of faded into obscurity. But this isn't the end of Bernabe Frankenstein's story, because in 2003, Bernabe would once again climb a groundbreaking new route. This time, Bernabe claimed to have climbed Culann and graded it 9B plus or 515C, meaning that not only was he once again the strongest climber in the world, but he was now 2 grades ahead of anyone else alive. Because the hardest route in the world at the time was Realization, which was a 9A plus or a 515A. But Bernabe had no video evidence of ever sending Culann. And to make matters worse, he also had no one to vouch for him that he had sent it. Not even a belayer. On a sport route. How did anyone possibly take this man seriously at this point? I feel like the same people who believed Bernabe when he said he sent Culann are the people today that are falling for crypto scams. But the guy on YouTube said I'd be rich. But Bernabe's claim wouldn't last long because in came none other than Danny Andrade himself to inspect the climb. Bernabe was sweating. Okay, dude was definitely having some sleepless nights. You know when Danny Andrade comes to inspect your route, you're fucked. That's what I've learned from this video so far. And Danny came back and said that the entire upper section of the route was completely untouched. Now you're probably wondering what all this has to do with the subject of this video, downgrades. Well, a little known climber by the name of Adam Ondra would be the first person to actually officially climb Culann, and he proposed a downgrade. So as of today, the world's first 9B plus is now officially a 9A plus, and there's still, allegedly, no evidence that Bernabe Fernandez ever climbed Culann. Now, despite everything in this video so far, it is still important to mention that Bernabe Fernandez was an extremely strong and talented climber back in the day. It's just that his reaction of going to destroy a route so that it couldn't be downgraded and subsequently faking, allegedly, an ascent of a route that was also downgraded have become pretty big moments in climbing history. But now let's move on to a situation where the person being downgraded was actually the victim. In 2008, professional rock climber James Pearson climbed the first ascent of a massive seaside trad route called Walk of Life. Now, nobody really understands how the British E grading system works, but essentially he graded the route 7A or 511D with an E grade or danger rating of E12.
As the climbing stuff editor, I have to quickly interject before we go to the next part. As an American who only climbs indoors, Brandon doesn't have the best grasp on the British trad grade system. You've got the two parts. You have the E number and then the technical grade number. The technical grade isn't the French sport grade. It's its own separate entity. I'll put up the Rock Facts guide here and you can kind of see where each E grade fits in along sport climbs, and that's the best way. Again, the grading system is all over the place, and don't take all my figures and numbers as literal, but it's just, yeah.
And similar to our last story, this would become the first E12 ever proposed. And also similar to our last story, another professional rock climber, this time Dave McLeod, came to inspect the route. The only difference being, there wasn't really any controversy at first. So Dave sent the route and he was like, sick climb, dude, but it's not 7A, it's 6C. And also, it's not E12, it's E9. Now that is a hefty downgrade. But to make matters worse, James had just had his climb, The Promise, downgraded from E10 7A to E7 6C, and his route, The Groove, downgraded from E11 7B to E7 7A. James was not having a good time. I know that getting the difficulty of your route downgraded has to hurt pretty bad, but I can't help but feel like getting the E grade downgraded is just so much worse. E12? You thought that was E12? You thought that was scary? What are you, some kind of beep? Now, it's important to note that one of these downgrades was done by Alex Honnold, which I don't think should even count.
One of our teammates is really lagging, so we're gonna have to cut him with a knife.
The dude's brain doesn't even work right, okay? His medulla oblongata doesn't produce fentanyl or some shit. I don't know, I saw it in a documentary. He's not scared of anything. So not only was James beating himself up over these pretty hefty downgrades, but the UK climbing community was out for blood.
A lot of the people that I either, read things from or I heard things from, always secondhand. No one ever said anything to my face. But they were people that I thought they were friends before. And when it all happened, yeah, I guess I just realized that I was probably a lot more alone than I thought. And it was, yeah, that was really hard to deal with. I think I tried to make it happen in the UK for a couple of months, but eventually I couldn't deal with it. I felt like there were just too many people looking at me and judging me, and the easiest way was to run away. So I just ran away and left, moved to Innsbruck.
Climbers are so mean, or annoying actually. Climbers are so annoying that they drove this man out of the country. Now this happened like 100 years ago, so it's hard to find examples of, where and how James was being mistreated by the community, but I did manage to find this article from ukclimbing.com that was written during all of these events. And this will give you kind of an idea of the scrutiny that James was under at the time. The author says things like, I don't know how much sport climbing James has done, but it's obvious to me that it isn't enough. And probably the pressure of being a North Face global athlete has gotten to him. To some extent, he must have known he was inflating the grade somewhat. It's time for this young lad to sit down and think. You sit down and think about what you did, young man. And before you say that this is just some obscure article, this has been read over 4,000 times. There's not that many rock climbers, okay? 4,000 that's all of them. That's all the climbers. Also, Anna Hazelnut sent Walk of Life a while back, so you can actually see the climb in full HD. And this thing is no joke. Anyone who can send this is obviously a very strong climber, so saying that James hasn't done enough sport climbing is just kind of ridiculous. Thankfully, today James Pearson is back on the wall doing what he loves, and most of the climbing community looks back at what happened to James as a bit of an overreaction by some crusty trad climbers. And in a strange twist of irony, in 2024, James went on to send the route Immortal, which he felt was soft. But James refused to officially downgrade it, saying, I don't want to comment on the degree, but I also don't want people to think that my silence means that I agree with the assessment, or worse, that I don't accept it. but am happy to take it anyway. What? Look, I'm not going to sit here and assess that which isn't accessible, unless of course access is limited by one's own assessment, in which case it's a V2. My man just wants to climb, okay? He's done with downgrades, upgrades, pay grades, fucking centigrades. He's on Fahrenheit now. But for those of you that hate yourself enough to browse rock climbing forums online, you might find yourself with a variety of opinions on downgrades. From, I think downgrades often make sense though, as a new beta is found or holds break. To, if the problem established was set and agreed upon, that's where it should stay. Anything else is disrespectful. I like that logic. I've always kind of had this idea of going out and finding some like Chaucy V2 to first ascent and just grading it V20 and then getting mad at anybody who downgrades it because that'd be disrespectful. Look at me now. Now I'm the one being toxic. As downgrades do, okay? They bring out the worst in people. Like in this rock climbing forum, where users were discussing the merits of downgrading, when one user asked, "Forgive my pedantry, but shouldn't this thread be in the training forum?" To which someone replied, "Not forgiven. Don't be such a pedantic prick." He kind of has a point though. Fucking rock climbing hall monitor coming in here like, guys, there's like 15 whole people who use these forums, okay, and it gets really confusing if we don't keep it organized. But I think that Eleanor Klaus of climbing.com said it best in her article, "Should everything be downgraded?" Where she says, "If I've learned anything from the several years that I've wasted reading absurdly long-winded Instagram sagas, it's that people get pretty upset when they're told that their project is soft." Which leads us to our biggest downgrade controversy stemming from an Instagram post that recently went viral. On November 11th of 2025, professional rock climber Sierra Blaire-Coyle made a post on Instagram accusing an undisclosed climber of downgrading her proj. This isn't a post I wanted to make celebrating my send of Birch Problem, but here it goes. Every single time I've sent a new grade in the double digits, V10, V11, V12, and now V14. Someone who has already sent the boulder has decided to retroactively downgrade the boulder. Yes, you're entitled to your own opinion on any grade of any boulder. However, retroactively downgrading something within a day of me announcing my send says something else entirely. So basically what she's saying is that she went and sent this boulder Birch Problem, and within a few days of her sending it, somebody else who had sent it in the past decided to downgrade it. So Sierra makes this post, and as of just 7 weeks later, it has over 6,000 likes. And people are pissed. The haters and the downgraders, so petty and pathetic. Great send, great post. Whilst the climbing community is generally fantastic, unfortunately it does attract a lot of these kinds of people. What kinds of people are you talking about, dude? You can't be saying shit like that. Amazing work, Sierra, and I'm even more inspired by you for speaking up about this very unfortunate culture. The Brofest is so exhausting. I'm exhausted. Clap, clap, clap. Hurt bros' feelings, huh? So like this one by Rick, who says, "Yep, just enjoy it." That's such a Rick thing to say. So at this point, we've seen a downgrade-E crash out and go and chip a route. We've seen a downgrade-E get attacked by the climbing community and run out of the country. And now we're about to see the climbing community go after the downgrader. So it didn't take long for the best investigatory minds on Instagram to get together and find this guy, Jordan Shepherd, a professional rock climber of relatively low notoriety with about 700 followers on his Instagram. And of course, this led to a flood of hate, negative comments, people contacting his sponsors trying to get him fired or whatever the hell. And you'd think that'd be the end of it. But this is where the story gets really weird. Climbers online started wondering how this one random dude suddenly had the authority to single-handedly downgrade a V14 boulder. So they started researching the history of Birch Problem. And the first thing they noticed is that Birch Problem has never been a V14. It's a consensus V13. So what happened? Did Sierra just goof up and think that Jordan had downgraded it to V13 when in actuality, he was just agreeing with the consensus grade? Well, it's a bit more complicated than that. Going back to the earliest send of the boulder that anybody could find online was that of Sam Davis, who initially graded the boulder V11. But as time went by and more people started to send, no one agreed with Sam's grade, and instead graded the boulder either V12 or V13. In fact, Brett Walker actually just sent Birch Problem a few weeks ago and agreed with the V12 grade. So it seems that historically the consensus grade for Birch Problem has been either hard V12 or soft V13. And this is where things get juicy. Because in December of 2024, Jordan Shepherd steps in, sends Birch Problem, and slaps a hefty V14 grade on it. And at the time, nobody really gave a shit, right? Some random dude with 700 Instagram followers saying that a hard V12 is a V14 isn't really controversial, it's just his opinion. But a year later, in September of 2025, Jordan goes back to Birch Problem with his friend Courtney Arnold. And Jordan's all like, "Yo, Courtney, wait till you send this thing, and you're totally gonna agree with me, it's definitely a V14. Courtney steps up to the boulder in the dead of night. Crickets chirping, wind blowing. palms sweaty, mom's spaghetti. And just as she planned, she sends Birch Problem. And she's like, nah, bruh, that's a V13. So Jordan's faced with a bit of a dilemma, right? Continue being the one guy who keeps saying that Birch Problem's a V14, or just agree with the consensus that it's a, hard 12, easy 13. Nobody wants to be that guy, okay, except for me. I'll gladly be that guy, okay? I'm now officially going to upgrade Rainbow Rocket from V11 to V18, meaning that I'm now one of the few people in the world to ever send the grade. Please, no applause, no applause. It's not that big of a deal. I'm a normal person just like you. I've just climbed V18. And now it's time to talk about Sierra Coyle's send. And mind you, Sierra has not been involved at all at this point. In just 2 months after Courtney Arnold's send of Birch Problem, Sierra shows up, sends Birch Problem, and just like Jordan, claims that it's actually a V14. But when Sierra pulls up Jordan's 1-year-old post on his 700-follower Instagram account, she finds that the post has been edited. Jordan's post now reads, Birch Problem, V13. Sierra has now taken Jordan's place as the only member of the Birch Problem is actually a V14 fan club, standing atop a mountain of featherbaggers amongst the likes of myself and Bernabe Fernandez. So Sierra makes her now famous Instagram post and everyone wants Jordan's head on a pike. And in hindsight now, knowing all the information, this story sucks, okay? It's just the most petty drama, but it just goes to show how far the climbing community will go to tear somebody down with zero context. And it's also important to note that Sierra never named Jordan in her Instagram post, okay? She was just venting about her frustrations, so he left the person accountable anonymous. But of course, Jordan's name got leaked anyway, and now he's a misogynist pig. Just say it's a V14, Jordan, okay? Don't be a misogynist. Go back, say it's a V14. You misogynist piece of shit. Fucking piece of shit won't call it a V14. You think it's a V13, you fucking pig. Courtney Arnold has also been on like full-blown damage control for Jordan on Instagram. When people started kind of dogpiling on him a little bit, calling him a sexist, she responded and said, "Hi, my name is Courtney, and I actually have a lot of inside info regarding this situation. Haha, I also did Birch Problem a little bit ago, like a month, and I promise you, it's not what it looks like. Haha." Jordan certainly messed up with his timing and all, but he is absolutely not the kind of person that would downgrade something just because a woman did it. Again, I am a woman and did it quite a while ago, and he was psyched for me. I would love to talk more about this if you're interested, but if you could please take this down so he doesn't get a crazy amount of unnecessary negativity, that would be awesome. Jordan also made a post on his own Instagram explaining the situation, but seeing as how Sierra literally has 300 times more followers than he does, the damage is already done. I gotta be careful too, she got way more followers than I do. I might be the next target. Allegedly. Alright, everything I said is alleged, okay? Allegedly, I'll be the next target. So, who's in the wrong here? Who gives a shit? No one's gonna care about this in a month anyway, but it's just another good example of how downgrades are one of the most ridiculous aspects of rock climbing. But on the positive side, things aren't always so dramatic when it comes to downgrades. For example, recently Pietro Viti repeated L'ombre du voyageur, V17, and downgraded it to V14. But when Charles Albert originally sent it, he was barefoot, and there was no drama. Everyone was just like, oh cool, it's V17 if you're barefoot and V14 with shoes on. Okay. Also, I just want to say that climbing barefoot on a roof like that is diabolical. But of course, lastly, we have to talk about the biggest downgrade in rock climbing history, Zion. In 2008, Skylar Weeks sent the boulder Zion, which was claimed to have been the hardest dyno in the world. For those of you who don't know, Skylar is the guy who holds the current dyno world record. Now this dyno is absolutely massive, measuring 8.5 feet between holds, and it took Skylar 76 days to send. And after sending the dyno, people obviously wanted to know what grade Skylar had in mind for the new hardest dyno in the world. But Skylar refused to grade the boulder, saying, quote, "I have no interest in the grades of climbs/dynos, and I really just do it because I love it and it's a great feeling. Me no care grade, me only like big dyno make fun time." But the dyno would soon be repeated by Mark Hobson, who allegedly proposed the grade V16. This would make Zion tied for the hardest boulder in the world at the time. But Skylar Weeks was quick to point out that he did not agree with the V16 grade, saying, "I really don't think my dyno, Zion, deserves an 8C plus grade." And Skylar would end up coming out on top of this one a bit. It was pretty smart of him to not grade it and to disagree with the V16 because people would end up repeating the boulder as the years went by. And as people sent the boulder, they realized that it was nowhere near V16. While initial downgrades suggested anywhere from V9 to V10, over the years the boulder has settled comfortably at the grade of V8. Definitely the biggest downgrade of all time. So thank you all so much for watching, and remember, rock climbing's supposed to be fun, okay? If you send something that you're proud of and someone comes along and downgrades it, just let it go. Don't go back and chip the holds on the route or run them out of the country or make unnecessarily vague accusations online. Downgrades are all part of the natural ecosystem of rock climbing. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.